KMSU?
Yes, this is Clint Howard calling for Dustin.
Clint Howard, this is Dustin. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. And listen, I apologize. I know I apologize for not responding sooner.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm just glad that we got you on the phone here.
Okay, well, terrific. It's just that, I don't know, life, and I'm not normally like a publicity hound. I'm still not, really, but just life's in session, and get busy, occupied doing things, and the last thing I really want to do is sit down and do a bunch of phoners.
No, that's understandable. Well, I appreciate you at least doing one with us. It's an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. It's more about timing than anything else. Listen, when you get older, it just, taking a crap takes a little longer. You know what I mean?
Well, Clint, I'll introduce you to my co-host, Ton.
Hey,
Ton?
Hey, Clint, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ton.
That's good.
Actually, and also, too, I am, 12 days from having my right hip replaced.
Holy, really? Is
I've
that
already had my
That's a real
left hip
thing?
replaced.
Wow.
And it was 5 years ago. And the doctor told me at the time, I have the same surgeon. He's a good surgeon. Not that I get special treatment. It just so happened I ended up with a real good surgeon. That he said they've come a long way in 5 years, and that my recovery time will be half, and the piece of equipment is superior to what he put in me, although what he put in me, he said he'll never have to replace. I mean, they've just, what people who go through it have to remember is they've been doing tens of thousands of these replacement operations.
Man,
sure.
So talk about getting the technique refined.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
And my doctor, Dr. Earhart at St. John's Hospital down in Santa Monica. That's not where I'm from, but that's where I'm going. He did 7 joint replacements the day he did mine.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
You couldn't do 7 brake jobs in a day, could you?
I don't know. I might be able to do that.
So anyway, yeah, Ice Cream Man 2.
Yeah, you got a new Kickstarter campaign going on for Ice Cream Man 2. Talk to us about it. It just started today.
Well, yes, it did. And, it actually didn't start a long time ago. Norman Epstein and I have remained in contact, but, sometimes 2 or 3 years go by, and I don't know, we got into contact a few months ago, and he had a circumstance come up where a whole new generation of people, young people, responded with complete unbridled enthusiasm regarding the movie. And Norman he's not retired, but he's certainly an older guy. He's kind of, I think he's a grandfather, and he finds the whole thing kind of fascinating. So we started fleshing out an idea about, well, what could we do? And he had the idea of going Kickstarter. And that's, let's see if these fans that have been kind of following this movie around for the last, 25 years, or Jesus, how long has it been? I think it's 20 years. Let's see if they really step up.
Yeah, I know you got quite a few different, plateaus for the different rewards for the money that you donate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all sort of part of the, I don't want to say game, but it's part of the way the structure of the system is set up. And in fact, if somebody's willing to donate enough, we will put you in the movie and dismember you, and then you can keep your own head as a souvenir after the movie is over.
Man,
so,
that's
Norman even said, and this is we were sitting around laughing about it, and actually the fun thing about it is reconnecting with Norman, and he's a really smart guy, and I really like just being around him. And him and I have concocted a pretty good idea for a little horror movie. And it is The Ice Cream Man. And it's just very interesting. And I certainly don't want to, give away too much, and I can't. But it's certainly not a linear, straightforward slasher movie, although it has those elements. And there are going to be no children in this movie. This movie is going to be grown up and adult.
Okay. Is it the same actors that were in the previous one?
Well, I think I'm going to be in it.
Right.
If we can afford me, I'll be in it. Norman and I talked about it. The kids, I think we are certainly going to hire the best available young actors we can find. If one of the kids from the original movie happens to sort of, I think the competition's going to be open. I think it's free agent time. I don't believe it's not necessary. And in fact, there's probably only going to be 3 of the kids that get focused on.
Okay.
That were in the original movie, and they're all grown up now. And that's about all I can tell you. But also, too, we understand that, like, the name Olivia Hussey just kind of puts a smile to your face. And, there's a whole new generation of Olivia Husseys. I know Olivia, and I know her husband. So, I would love to have her be in the movie, too. But there's just things about the original Ice Cream Man that Norman and I have talked about that people respond really well to. And we want to service that, and we just want to take another whack at the movie.
Yeah, talk to us about when you were first making the first Ice Cream Man and what your thoughts were there when you went into it, and if you really thought it was going to kind of have this cult following that it has.
No, not at all. It was a job. Listen, I went in, and I think I auditioned. In fact, I think Norman had hired somebody else to play the Ice Cream Man, and then when they saw I was available, and at that time in my career, Ron would hire me to play a small part in one of his movies, and that's wonderful, and I appreciate the opportunity, and it's great chops and all that stuff, but a man has to, I have a wife, a family. I got to take care of myself. So I'm auditioning, and this part for this Ice Cream Man came up, and it was this little independent, low-budget horror movie, and I willingly signed on, and I had no idea that it was going to be something that people were going to be talking about 20 years later. You never know about this business. That's the wonderful thing about the entertainment business. I keep it pretty loose in my hands. It's, we're just like people that work at the carnival that set up their booth on the Midway, and we put on our little show, and people throw a few coins in our cigar box, and it's like, it's not that complicated. We all have a little act that we do, and it seems like there are a lot of people that gain pleasure, with what Norman and I do. So let's just try to set up the booth in the Midway and have another crack at it.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that you have been acting, I don't even know, maybe 50 years or something now. Obviously you have a very impressive...
53 years professionally.
Yeah. Has that always been, kind of what you wanted to do, or were you just kind of placed into it by default? Because I know your whole family was actors.
Well, yeah. Well, listen, I was 2 years old when I was placed into it, so, default might not be quite the right word, but it's not exactly like, I was reading the New York Times and somebody said, hey, would you like to try show business, Clint? I think I was still in diapers when I started acting.
Right.
It was a family operation. Show business, acting, being in the theater. My mom and dad are both they're the ones, they're the pioneers. Mom is no longer with us. Dad is still around and still real vibrant and acting. He had a real good part in Nebraska here a couple of years ago. Continues to work all the time. He was just in 2 episodes of Bones. My dad, Rance Howard. But they just instilled in us sort of a, this is a pretty good job, and they had enthusiasm, and my dad certainly had the common sense it took to stay in the business, and he imparted some wonderful lessons for Ron and I, and as we started out, I did have, when I was in junior high and high school, I had my eyes on journalism, and I'm a pretty good writer, and I certainly could have become a sports journalist at the drop of a hat. The trouble is as I step back, as they made all seniors in high school do, and take a look at your future career, I saw that there was a glass ceiling that these sports writers were going to bang up against real quick. And acting, which is a job I already had, their glass ceiling was a lot higher, so it didn't make a lot of sense for me to pursue journalism.
Sure. Well, we have, I don't even know, I mean, hundreds of different things you've been in, so it'd be hard to touch on all our favorites, but maybe just a couple. And
well, pick out something that's not a favorite. Maybe pick out one that turns your stomach, and we can talk about that one.
See, I think the problem is the ones that are our favorites might turn other people's stomachs. I don't know.
Well, that's good. Then we can have we can have a vomit fest.
So, I mean, I guess first of all, you have a very wide range of things that you've done. You've done some very commercial, huge, heavy hitters. You've done some very low budget things. It seems like you don't mind working on whatever's available to you. I mean, first off, a crazy thing, you're in the first episode of the first Star Trek series ever.
Well, it was the fourth episode, actually.
The fourth, okay.
Yeah. Now, I was a working actor. I mean, I was 6 years old at the time. You know, I had an agent, and you know, the part came up. They were looking for actors. I recall auditioning. So that was just, listen, you know, Star Trek was a job. They've all been jobs. Listen, what I do for a living is exactly that, a living. And as far as trying to guide my career, as far as trying to, you know, control it, first of all, the casting directors don't even do it. I mean, I truly believe there is a God above my agent and the casting directors. And I think that if I just keep, you know, my nose to the grindstone and keep working, that things happen. And, you know, sure enough, that's what's happened. None of this has been my choice or design. You know, being the kid in Gentle Ben, it was an audition. You know, working on Evil Speak, it was an audition. You know, getting to do Seinfeld was somebody thought of me. I auditioned for Seinfeld and got the job, you know. Now, Adam Sandler thought of me. Adam offered me the job. He couldn't, he grew up watching me. He could not stand to make a movie without Clint Howard in it. Adam's a really good dude. So the couple that I've done for Adam have been, you know, they've been offers. But you got to understand, I mean, you know, I'm just an actor. Now I do other things. I produce, and I have my eyeball on directing, and I am, if Ice Cream Man 2 gets any traction at all, I certainly are going to have my hands in it as a producer, and, you know, Norman and I are going to collaborate. We probably will hire a young kid to direct it, because the goal that Norman and I have is to really do a lean, mean, $300,000 horror movie, you know, and shoot it in 18 days, and work real fast, and go real hard, and you know, I'm 55 years old. And, you know, I would love to direct, but it's just, this is not my forte, you know, this kind of frenetic pace and the plan. It'll be just enough to be in the movie.
Well, yeah, you definitely have a lot of experience under your belt, so I'm sure you can pull it off, most definitely.
Yeah, no, listen, experience, 50 years. You know, very consecutive. In fact, I believe I worked every year of my 53 years. My first job was actually in 1961, because I have my tax return from that year. I made $100. And the refund, the form was so simple. It wasn't even a sheet of paper. It was about a quarter of a sheet of paper was wow. My tax form in 1961. I mean, it was a simple, you know, $100.
Well,
but I've been very fortunate, you know, and my dad, you know, I will forever be grateful at his guidance and his wisdom and the things that he's gotten involved with and the things he hasn't gotten involved with, you know, both for Ron and me. I mean, we both feel the same way.
Sure. Well, one thing, Clint, I got to ask you about, probably my favorite film you were in was Rock and Roll High School. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, you know, that wasn't really an audition. See, I had worked for Corman. Ron had just directed a movie called Grand Theft Auto for Roger Corman. And I had been in a couple of Corman movies by that point. And a guy who was Ron's second unit director and he may have been his editor, one of his editors. Joe Dante ended up being his editor. But a guy named Alan Arkish, he approached me with an idea. He had sold Roger on the idea of doing a little kind of knockoff movie of, what was the Travolta, Saturday Night Fever. But he wanted to call it Rock and Roll High School Fever or something. But he sold it to Roger as it was just going to be a ripoff of Disco. And Roger bought it hook, line, and sinker and gave Alan at the time like $250,000. And Alan was just doing a little comedy that was tipping his cap at his youth. Alan was a rock and roller. He grew up going to the clubs in New York City and the Ramones certainly, it was all negotiable and it all came down to monetary. Cheap Trick was offered the gig and they were just breaking and they just wanted a little too much. And I know Rick and those guys now pretty well. And they kind of regret turning it down. As it turned out, the Ramones were perfect.
Yeah, did you spend a lot of time working with the Ramones? I know you were in a few scenes with them, but did you see them a lot, off the shoot?
Not really. I saw Johnny fighting with his wife one time, and I saw Marky warming up, and it was pretty impressive. He was really, really working his warm-up pads. He was taking the thing really seriously. Like, he was warming up a lot more than I was rehearsing, which impressed me. But, it wasn't until later. John and I had several opportunities to spend time together after Rock and Roll High School, and he, was a really, really wonderful guy, and we shared some mutual friends. And so, after the fact, I became friends with him. But while we were shooting, you got to remember, it was a Roger Corman movie. That 21 days.
Sure.
It was that we were shooting so fast, and we were shooting also in terrible locations. We were shooting down in like South Central Los Angeles. They literally had to have like armed guards around this school where we were filming. Roger, listen, there's a story about Roger Corman that Ron directing his first movie, Grand Theft Auto, was his baby. It's something he'd always wanted to do. This was, Corman was giving him his little opportunity, his little $650,000 opportunity. So there's a sequence where he has these people from an old folks' home in jeopardy. They're in peril. Their bus is headed. They were headed somewhere. They headed to a church choir thing or something. It's a bus of old ladies, and it gets commandeered by this over-anxious cop like Barney Fife, and they're going to go on this wild hunt, which ends up leading them to Vegas. And it's this bus full of ladies, and they had only scheduled, like Roger had only signed off for 6 extras, and Ron, they got a small little bus, but 6 old people is not really a lot of jeopardy. And Ron went to Roger and said, "Listen, Roger, this is kind of an important part of the movie, and we're going to have them all, jostling around in the back, and it'd be like if we could just get 6 more extras, it'd be great. I can make that scene really good." And Roger said to Ron, he goes, "Ron, if you do a good job for me, you'll never have to work for me again."
Wow.
Sounds fun. Now, I have to ask about another interesting film that really stuck with me, Clint, The Wraith. Do you have any good memories about doing that film?
Are you kidding? That it was, I do remember I was there when the Challenger exploded. Mm-hmm. I was in Tucson. So, there's a memory burned into my head of I know exactly where I was.
Wow.
But as far as the film goes, it was just as you can imagine. Charlie and Nick and I and Dave, we had Jamie Bosian, Chris Nash, we all bonded. Sherilyn Fenn was dating Johnny Depp at the time. And Johnny flew into Tucson for a while and hung out. And we were all kids. Charlie was especially young. But we literally, I mean, we knew. I mean, first of all, we all thought it was pretty cool that Randy Quaid was in the movie. I mean, we kind of knew what we were doing. Trying to do it as good as possible, and we all like Charlie was certainly looking on to bigger and better things at the time. Even during the shoot, he had like a 3-movie deal with Paramount for like pretty good money for a young movie star, which signed while he was making The Wraith. Oliver Stone also, while he was making The Wraith, Oliver Stone decided him to be the lead in Platoon.
Wow.
So, Charlie was in a good mood, and we had a good time. I mean, there was one time me and Nick and Charlie kind of snuck off and went to Vegas for a few hours,
Did you take the car there? Or?
No. Nothing happened. Move right along. Nothing happened here. Move right along. No, everything was fine. The car, actually, we were all very underwhelmed, because, of course, they had a car that looked exactly like the car, but it was a Volkswagen. And the thing is then they didn't want you to touch it, and that just pissed us off. We're actors here, for Christ's sakes. If we got to friggin' touch the car, we're going to touch the car.
Yeah.
And I know the guys that were there where it was like a car commercial. Don't touch a car. At that point, when you're 24 years old and somebody tells you not to touch the car,
yeah.
What are you going to do?
And I remember, wasn't it supposed to be, or didn't Pontiac try to put their name on that car? But really it was just the Volkswagen underneath there.
Well, I don't know. No, listen, Dodge was involved.
Wow.
All I know is they had a money car, and then they had a car that was a piece of crap.
And you couldn't even touch the piece of crap.
No, they didn't care. Those 2 or 3 guys with buffer rags in their back pockets, you didn't want to mess with those guys.
Wow.
But you see, when you're 23 or 24, that's exactly what you want to do.
Yep. You want to push those buttons.
But I had a good time. I haven't talked to Charlie in several years, but Charlie's a really good dude. And in many respects, Charlie is really completely misunderstood. And I've got it's rare that it happens, but I've got friendships from that movie that I normally don't have. It happened on The Wraith, and it happened on Apollo 13.
Wow.
Normally when you finish a movie, everybody hugs and goes, "Oh, we're going to be best friends for life." You never see them again. But on Apollo 13, there were just some connections that just happened that remained strong.
Sure.
And the same with The Wraith.
And that's even interesting. I mean, can you talk to us? For you, is there a big difference when you're doing something more low budget, like the Rock and Roll High School or The Wraith, and in comparison to doing that Apollo 13?
Well, yes. Yeah, first of all, there's a big difference. It happens when that phone call happens between me and the agent, when my agent tells me how much they're going to give me.
I suppose.
No, I can tell. Listen, I give it my all, regardless. There are some advantages to doing big budget filmmaking. There are definitely advantages. There's also some things about big budget filmmaking that make it harder. I don't even want to say harder. It's just more. It's easier to play it safe when you're kind of working on a big budget movie. If you're doing something kind of down and dirty, you get that kind of down and dirty attitude, which I appreciate. I enjoy. Listen, I don't see myself often, but I know what I look like, and I know I'm better when I'm really natural and down and dirty.
Yeah, it seems like, any project that you show up in, even if it's just a small cameo, you usually are, stealing the scenes, I think.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't try to. God, because guys would kick me in the ass if I did that.
Wow.
No, I just try to do my thing.
Sure.
I just try to find my spot and or, if it's an attitude or, whatever it is, I just try. Sometimes I get caught. They call that chewing on the scenery.
Wow.
I've been known to have a buffet chewing on the scenery. But all actors are guilty of that from time to time.
Sure.
That's another thing I've learned with my experience in the business is, you can just kind of relax. We've all been through it, and you just kind of keep pushing along. It certainly is a marathon, and you're never going to get it perfect.
Right. Well, one thing I want to ask you, Clint, kind of a side note, is your band, the Kempsters. I haven't seen a lot of info online, but I was kind of wondering, how that came about.
Well, I was in my very early 20s. It was after rock and roll high school, actually. And a good dear friend of mine, Scott Green, he was going to be my roommate. I bought a house, and he was going to move in and pay rent, and he was learning how to play the guitar. And just more out of boredom and kind of something to do, he said, well, let's get a band together. Because, he got good enough to play. And then we found a couple of guys that were just perfect. And we had this attitude, this kind of rebellious, fun, crazy, not quite punk, but just kind of a fun, rambunctious attitude. It was fun to do. And we started practicing in the living room of my house. And for a couple of years, we played around Los Angeles, and we did some recordings. I mean, the stuff that's available, this was all pre-digital. This stuff, the photographs, there's only a handful of photographs, and I was very fortunate because one of the guitar players, not my partner, but the lead guitar player, a fellow named Sabino Flores, he kept a great audio archives of our band. He recorded everything, and he gave it to me. And now it's all on tape. And now the recordings when we were rehearsing and stuff, I mean, they're not any good. But I was able to peel enough stuff off of his recordings to put together a couple of nice CDs. I listen to it all the time. The music still, it still does it for me.
Is there a place that we could get access to that? Are you selling them anywhere or making them available?
Well, I don't know. No. I mean, no. Listen, I'm not. They're not available on Amazon. I mean, I know that a few have been sold over the years.
Okay.
I know somebody who's got a few. But no, at this point, there's no operation that's selling Clint Howard and the Kempster CDs. But listen, stay tuned on Facebook.
Okay.
Maybe I'll post something, and I don't know. Hey, it ain't about the dough. I enjoy when people hear the music. I mean, I certainly just it's not for everybody. I wouldn't say it's an acquired taste. It almost has to be a genetic kind of thing. that our little brand of rebellious music sort of did it for you, or does it for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we would love to have access to it at some point if it comes up.
Yeah, no, well, okay. Okay, well, stay tuned.
Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
Well, obviously you mentioned 53 years in the acting business, and you've done just about everything. We talked about Ice Cream Man and a lot of other comedies and Oscar-winning dramas. Is there something that you prefer to do, or is it all just kind of work like you mentioned earlier?
Well, comedy's harder. I mean, it's more of a challenge. Good comedy is really, really, really good, but good comedy is really, really hard because the knowing where the laughs are and getting the audience there. That's a skill, and the guys that do comedy well, I really admire. Like the movie Tootsie was an absolute brilliant piece of work because all the laughs were all in the right places and all the performances just were all perfect. So yes, I mean, but listen, I like acting. Give me any kind of quirky character. Give me any character. Listen, who isn't quirky? That I bug my agents every once in a while. I say, listen, your attorney's probably quirkier than I am. Why can't I play attorneys?
Yeah.
So anyway, listen, I plan on doing it for a few more years. I still act. I mean, I've got a California driver's license and I can go to auditions. As well as have the luxury of having lots of wonderful connections around that, sometimes they invite me to come and work or, then there's other things that I'm involved with, like this Ice Cream Man thing, or there's another little project, another little horror project that sort of suits my fancy that I'm keeping my eyes peeled on.
Yeah, we know you've got the Ice Cream Man 2 going on right now. It's at Kickstarter. Yeah, tell us about how people can sign up for it or any other projects they have coming up.
Okay, listen, I don't want to sound naive or like I'm playing the stooge, but I would just go to Kickstarter and type in Ice Cream Man 2, the number 2, and go from there. And there's various levels that you can kind of donate, and $1 to say hey, or it goes up in value, and it in a way, like I said before, this is a wonderful opportunity to just to gauge the temperature of these fans, because it really, for me too, it's been phenomenal that this little low budget horror movie that got a terrible release managed to kind of hang around in its own goofy, weird way, with a lot of weird bit stuff in it that people embrace, how it's held up. And, and Norman said, listen, it doesn't do any harm to see. Who knows? Wouldn't it be kind of fun? And I agree with Norman. I think it would be fun. It would be fun to go back and spend a couple of months and put the Ice Cream Man together.
Yeah, awesome.
I know it'd be pretty sweet.
It'd be a happy, happy day.
Yes, it would be a very happy, happy, happy day. Except for the people that got their heads cut off. Then they wouldn't be very happy. There'll be a few of them.
Yeah, well, I loved the first one. I remember renting it from the video store on VHS, and definitely looking forward. I hope the new one here comes to fruition.
Well, listen, so do I. I like to work, and this, it's not a matter of making a lot of money. It would be a wonderful opportunity to step up and kind of entertain folks.
Excellent. Well, good luck with the surgery. And, again, we've had hundreds of people on this show. I think you're on the top of the list. Thanks a lot, Clint.
Well, listen, I appreciate that. Thanks, man.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Okay.